For me, there's a lot of different research that goes into it, but to sort of summarize it, I look at cultural heritage as a predominant topic for me. And within that, you have both tangible and intangible heritage. So you have things like values and traditions, language and linguistics, as well as just different rituals in different communities and contexts, as well as sort of the physical landscape or things like monuments or different parts of sort of the architectural or cultural landscape. So for me, I like to create sort of what I like to call memoryscapes, where I'm incorporating different sort of nuggets of those bits of sort of visual language, and I interpret that. But I also really look at a lot of different topics. I consider myself a visual storyteller, so a lot of my work is very narrative. So I like to look at a lot of research based on just stories of the local community, historically or contemporarily speaking. And I just sort of see what sparks my interest and fuse those all together to kind of create this hybrid of stories, and I hope sort of a visual alphabet even, looking at the local language and alphabets that I come across. So it's a fusion of all those things kind of merged together visually. Specifically, my time in Latvia, I think I've discovered a lot, but I've really sort of found a really beautiful visual, colorful palette from just the fortress area. I've really kind of rediscovered my love of texture, for instance, from the beautiful sort of the visual dynamic between some of the sort of newer renovations with sort of the older sort of rustic sort of exteriors of some of the buildings. So I think that has really translated in my painting and in also just sort of my general visual explorations during my time at the residency. But I think in general, I've really discovered just sort of an interesting fusion of cultural influences, I think, and that's really impacted me. I've seen just sort of the history of Daugavpils with its various points in history of being in different sort of contexts, different countries sort of taking over the city, and also as a point of navigation. So I've really sort of looked at the mapping and the borders and the physicality of the city as a really big point of inspiration and insight as well. I think art and painting and things like that, it provides a universal language, I think, of communication, and it really reminds us of our common humanity. It brings out sort of the emotive qualities in all of us and makes us just kind of consider the bigger questions in play of what sort of brings us together, what do we have in common, those key ideas. I have a big interest in sort of cross-cultural understanding and communication. So I personally try to translate that into my work in a very abstract way. Personally, I really find that to be a really effective mode for me to externalize those ideas, and I find it really helpful in terms of stimulating what I like to call active listening. So you really have to spend time engaging with the work, and it provokes a lot of questions. It really invites conversation and dialogue. So I think just starting the conversation and having that civil discourse is a way for us to kind of move forward and start finding those tangible solutions, but it's really a starting point, and I hope that it sort of continues gaining momentum. Mark Rothko has been a figure that in American context is humongous, and we see him sort of glorified amongst the great American artists and painters. So I was thrilled to see that he also has these real familial and tangible connections to this part of the world. Central and Eastern Europe is a big interest of mine, so I personally, not only in his sort of explorations of color field, which is a big influence for me, I like that sort of multicultural context of him having sort of this context within Latvia, within this part of the world, and the explorations as an American. I find that really interesting for me personally, as an artist and just as a human being as well. I think first and foremost, just the generosity of spirit in Daugavpils, in the Mark Rothko Center has just been phenomenal. I feel like it's been such a safe space to sort of explore our practices in unique ways, but also I just feel very at home. The people here are just so welcoming, and that's, I think, been a huge jumping off point for me to really feel like I can safely kind of delve into some tough topics and really experiment in my work and feel like it is a safe space to do that, and it's a good space to have dialogue about those explorations as well. So that would be sort of the primary one for me.